Hello, it's Professor Gavor. Chapter 11 is about information management, the nexus of business and IT. It's where it all comes together. The purpose for doing IT is to arrange, control, manipulate data, turn it into useful information that we can make decisions out of. If the information is not useful and not correct, if the data is not correct, the information that you try to derive from it will be misleading and you'll make wrong decisions. So, information, data management, and delivery may be the responsibility of IT. Information management really requires a partnership of business and IT. It's kind of where it all comes together. Certainly, IT is involved in every aspect of IM, but the information is the heart and soul of the business, and its management cannot delegate it away to anybody but themselves. So what are the drivers? Compliance, operational effectiveness and efficiency, and strategy. The foundation of creating this business value comes from this. You have IT, and you have knowledge that the company needs to use to make decisions. IT certainly automates their transaction processes, and hopefully the transactions are done properly because the data is in the right place at the right time, in the right format, and is correct to make that. But then once you start tracking all of your decisions and tracking all of your transactions, there are trends. There are things that you can glean from this. There's information to be had that can guide you in better managing the company. So knowledge management feeds back into information management, feeds back into information technology. But really it goes this way first, and then what you need, you've got to communicate back to the IT folks. So you have to have an IM kind of policy. You have to articulate the operational components, establish the information stewardship, who's in charge of it, and build some standards. So the policy outlines the terms for making decisions about information. What kind of information do we have? What kind of data do we have? What kind of information do we want to turn it into? And who is responsible for the various accountabilities associated with it? Who's responsible? What's the quality, security, privacy, risk tolerances, and prioritization that you want to have? So policy has to be established at the very senior management level. And obviously senior management needs IT management to help them through this. So articulate the operational components. We have a strategy, you have people, you have processes, and you have technology and architecture. You have the culture and behavior of the company, and then you have some governance that needs to be done. So the strategy helps guide what the people, processes, and technology need to do. You filter in the culture and behaviors of the company, and believe me, they're different. So this is really a socio-technical kind of system. How are you going to use this information? Who needs it? What form and format does it have to be in? And then how do you manage that from a governance standpoint? Well, you want to establish then your stewardship. What are the roles and responsibilities? And information stewards, they're responsible for the meaning, accuracy, timeliness, consistency, validity, completeness, privacy, security, and compliance of the information. The information stewards are basically the business people, the people that enter the data, that use the data, that transform and need to have the data transformed into decisionable information. Build information standards. So you want the standards to ensure that you have quality. If you don't have quality standards, accuracy standards, and some control over this, the information will turn into chaos and disarray. There's no need to update this field. There's no need to keep this current. There's no need to make sure things are entered correctly. We use metadata repositories to cross-reference models, processes, and information. What is metadata? Metadata is information about the information. Data about the data. You have to start putting, if you can't do this without having some measures of quality accuracy. It's the only way you can keep things up to date. And standards help reduce information redundancy. We don't want it in two places. We don't want two entries of it. If you have 2 or 3 entries of the same data, the probability of having one of them be wrong increases dramatically. Build information standards. Things have to have unique names and they have to be well defined. It's very easy to define what an on-time order is. Obviously, it's an order that's delivered on time. Or a complete order. A complete order is an order in which the customer gets everything that they ordered. Now, that's a simple definition. We all understand it. Inside the system, at different aspects and different points in the order management process, that definition can have very different meanings. And you have to understand at what point is our official measure coming from. For example, so data elements, examples, and character length. All this stuff has to be thought out ahead of time. And without this is the blood cells, if you will, of this entire ERP process. What are the implementation requirements? What are the spacing and ordering? You don't want to have to do it right. Sometimes when you set the data set, and if you did something wrong and, we forgot to add this bit or that bit, or we don't have enough fields, or maybe in 5 years we're going to have to add 3 more digits to it as our business expands, that's really hard to do after the fact. It's easier to do up front. Issues. Culture and behavior. Number 1, how do the people have to maintain, no matter how accurate and reliably the system is programmed and works internally, if you put the wrong stuff in, garbage in, you get garbage out. So it's the people that enter the data. And it's the people that have to make some assessment. Is the data accurate? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Does the weight of a can of tennis balls, is it reasonable that it should be 35 pounds? No, it should be more like, 14 ounces maybe. Information risk management. What is the risk of having the wrong information? Some information is obviously more important to have the right information than others. Others won't hurt you too much, but let's say you have the wrong weight or you have the wrong volumes on product you're shipping. You're either going to overload trucks, underload trucks, but if you overload the truck, you risk getting penalized by the state if your trucks are pulled over. If you risk underloading the trucks because you have the wrong dimensions and wrong weights, you're paying too much for shipping. And over time that will add up. What's the value of various bits of information? And then information, of course, remember, I keep saying data turns into information. So what does the information need? How private does it need to be? Well, obviously, you want the only people to see salary are a person's boss and HR, certain people in HR, and basically not anyone else in the company. That's private. Other things that might be proprietary data inside the company need to be in the hands of people that, what do they say in the military, have a need to know. I could have a secret or a top secret clearance in the government, but that doesn't mean I have access to all top secret information anywhere in the government. I only have access for the top secret information that I need to know to do my job. That same principle applies here. And then what's the knowledge gap? What information do we have that teaches us something? And then what is the gap between the knowledge we'd like to have? Can we get that knowledge? One knowledge, using an example at North Park, our undergrads graduate. We would like to know 5 years down the line what their salary is. That would be a tremendous bit of information and a measure for seeing how well we teach our undergraduates. And we'd like to see that number go up over time beyond inflation. Well, that's really hard to get because not all that information is in our control. So that's a knowledge gap that we have. Can we get that data? It's going to have to expand the kind of data we collect and control. That's, of course, an extreme example. Culture and behavior. Well, they talk about integrity, formality, and control. So integrity defines the information usage boundaries. Formality enables accurate, consistent information. Control, once information is trusted, it can be used to develop integrated performance criteria and measures. That's where we want to get. Because if you have the wrong information, you're getting performance criteria and measures that are meaningless, and you're reacting on things that are misleading. So the culture of the company has to be around having this data, having the right data in the system, ensuring that you have the right data, it's up to speed and up to date, and then, only then, can you really begin to translate it into actionable information. You want things to be transparent and everybody to understand. And that takes some education, as I talked about on time and complete orders. And depending on if it's like when the order is first entered, when the order is then through its credit check, when the order is then verified that all the items ordered are items currently for sale, those will affect the denominator of complete. What are the items that were ordered? If they ordered something that was not currently for sale, do you include that? Do you not include that? Well, the customer is going to include it because that's how they look at things. You might not include it, and therefore your customer service numbers will always be better than the customer's customer service numbers for the same orders. So there's all of that transparency that you had to have and understanding and how you share it. How you share sensitive and non-sensitive information amongst employees and with your customers even, and your suppliers for that matter. So proactiveness. You want to create an alertness to picking up new information about business conditions however you can. So this chapter is kind of a combination of data management and knowledge management. They're really two different things. Information risk management. Determine internal and external interdependencies. If I need data from the outside to get the knowledge that I need I need data to transform it into information so I can make knowledgeable decisions. I've got to know how I'm going to get that data, where it's coming from, and what the integrity of that is. I've got to determine the level of information security needed and the cost to get the data. The data I talked about for North Park, 5 years out, what are my undergraduates, what are my graduates' salaries? That's wonderful information to have. How the heck am I going to get it, and what's the cost of that? Probably we won't have that anytime in the near future because the cost to implement it is very high. And then if the information is sensitive, you want to have the right security strategy to make sure only people see it. So the elements of a security strategy. Risk management, you want some standards, education awareness, compliance, identity management to make sure that you don't let people that aren't allowed to get in and see things. And then you have your information protection center, your people in charge of data security. The value of information. So at the lowest level, we have some operational information where the value is a subjective assessment. It takes time for an information management investment to pay off. And then information value is difficult to quantify at a strategic level. So you want to look at these things. It's difficult to quantify sometimes, not always. It takes time for an IM investment to pay off, and at the highest level, the value of it is subjective. It's really the human beings that must determine that, because are they able to make better decisions? And then your better decision is only verified if your performance, economic performance, increases. Privacy. Well, they have to regulate current and long-term information management initiatives. It's that need to know, who needs to know it, and how do you keep it only in their hands and not the hands of people in your company that you may trust but don't need to see it and shouldn't see it. And certainly people that should not have any access ever from outside the company. Many countries, I guess, require a chief privacy officer who helps the organization ensure the practice of data quality, accuracy, retention, and security. This is an ongoing thing, and I don't think it's going away. As soon as we have the beauty of interconnectedness in one database, opens it up to a lot of risk. So, even before this, you have raw data. Raw data gets turned into information. Human beings process that, and I guess that's where artificial intelligence wants to enter the picture here. It gives it context, judgment, intuition. That makes it knowledge. So it's a fluid mix of framed experience, values, contextual information, and expert insight that provides a framework for evaluating and incorporating new experiences and information. It originates and is applied in the minds of knowers. Again, I think AI can help in this area. Let's think about medical diagnostics even. You could look at this, how do we turn information and data and raw x-rays and patient history and get some knowledge about what's going on with that patient. Certainly a doctor could do it, but if we can model how doctors can think, well, heck, AI could do it. So the knowledge doing gap is better. There's a quote about weight loss that I use all the time. And it says, knowing never equals doing. I mean, there's not a person alive that has some intelligence that doesn't know the right way to eat, exercise, and live to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But the number of people that are actually able to do it, there's a tremendous gap there. So it's assumed that better information will lead to better decision. Yes. Well, I don't know. I have great information about diet, and I've been struggling all my life making it happen. But there needs to be a clear link between the desired actions and the acquisition and packaging of specific information. So you've got to understand, in some areas, knowledge and doing, there's almost no gap. In other places, for some reason, there's a gap. And that's the people part of the process that you've got to focus on. So you get started. Well, start with what you have. Do you even know what you have? And do you know what you want? This whole idea of as is and to be apply here as well. Ensure cross-functional coordination amongst all the stakeholders. Provide the right incentives. All of this knowledge usage and use of metrics and turning data into information, into actionable information, into knowledge, into doing requires kind of a strategy for the company. What's important? What are you driving? And making sure that you have the good balance of all of that to make sure that one area does not dominate the other. If you optimize a part of the puzzle, it may be at the expense of another part. If I optimize horsepower in an automobile, it's going to be at the expense of fuel economy. If I want to balance fuel economy and acceleration and power, well, that's a different story, isn't it? And I am going to look at information in a different way. What is your objective? So the elements of information management operations. Well, I guess this is an Appendix A of the chapter. Strategy, people, processes, technology and architecture, culture, behaviors, and governance. The only IT part of this is technology and architecture. The rest is all business and it's all people oriented. Key part of this. So other strategy elements. External environment, strategic planning, information lifecycle, planning, program integration, performance monitoring. Again, this is all people stuff. There's not an IT thing in here. Information lifecycle, you probably want to look and see what that is. But the information that we're using to make decisions today may not be the information that we will have at our disposal tomorrow, which may be more advanced. It may be more granular. It may help us make better decisions. So information has a life. And also, how long does information last? Well, some information we don't keep all the time because as soon as we see it and the day is done, the next day we're looking at it. Most MRP systems, material resource planning systems, don't keep track of what the inventory levels were yesterday. They look at what is on the horizon that you need. What do you have right now? What is in production? You don't need to have the snapshot of yesterday. It's almost worthless as the day ended. And you have a new snapshot today that you're working on. So some data, the importance of it evaporates almost the moment it's created. So again, look at what's here, the people elements. I emphasize how much people elements were involved, but people need to know their roles and responsibilities. They have to be trained in that because if you're making them do something that they're not used to doing, they are not going to just get a memo and adhere to whatever it is you've told them to do. You've got to train and support them in that. It's always good to have some subject matter experts because subject matter experts are the people that can, let's go back to this picture, take the context, judgment, and intuition and turn information into knowledge because they have that experience and they kind of, as Walt Disney would say, it's always good to have one person on a team, at least one person on a team that knows what the heck they're doing. Subject matter experts are experts in their particular area. And if that's the area you're focusing on, it's always good to have at least one person that knows what the heck they're doing. And relationship management. If people keep all the data to themselves and treat it like proprietary information when they could be and should be sharing it, that's an old cultural leftover in a silo mentality that you probably want to get rid of. Other elements, project management, change management, risk management, business continuity, information lifecycle, collect, create, capture, use and dissemination of the information, maintenance, protection, and preservation of it, retention, and then disposition of it if something's wrong or when you need to dispose of it even. So this is, again, look at this. This is all people stuff that need to be done to do this. This is not, we're talking about information technology and information systems and now information management, but look how important the people part is of this. It's people that use the information. I mean, that's where AI is trying to take the people part of this out. I imagine it will eventually do so. I don't see how quickly or not. I think medicine may be the cutting edge. If they can start using AI to do diagnosis and prognosis, then I think we may have turned that corner, but I don't see it yet. Well, here's the architecture elements. What are the tools we need? What is the integration of technology? What is the information life cycle organization? And what are the data standards? That's incredibly important. Then we're back to culture and behavior elements. Leadership, awareness of this issue, incentives for people to do the right things. What is the competency that's needed throughout different areas of the organization? If you put in a sophisticated ERP system and don't have this information management part of kind of everybody's job, well, that's your implementation will suffer from it, and you will never get the full performance you expect to get out of it. And communities of interest. Who are the people that use and collect the data? How do they use it? What are the best practices? They probably should talk to each other now and then and share these best practices. At some point, it becomes mature and it kind of everybody knows, but how quickly can you get there from the start of this? So, governance. What are the principles, policies, and standards? I mean, everything that's a business process should have some standard operating procedures written around it. It shouldn't be a phone book. It can be a few pages. It can be one page. But you need to address it because people won't know what to do if you don't tell them and you don't include them in determining what it is they have to do. If people are part of the decision-making process to create the policies and standards, their buy-in is at a higher level than it would have been. Then do we comply to the policies? The principles, policies, and standards are simply stating how we want to operate. Then you ask the question, do we actually operate that way? So you can put measures in place to find that out. You want to use some of that compliance data, that metadata, data on the data, to evaluate your program. You want to kind of assess the quality of the information, the security of the information, and who has access to it, the privacy rules. So organizations face many challenges in implementing information management because that's where you take a ERP system and take it to the next level. IT can lead in developing this and maybe probably should be the lead, but you find out that finance and supply chain and sometimes even sales have an equal stake in it. The business area must be ultimately involved in the implementation and stewardship, or else it won't happen. Thank you very much. And this is the end of all the presentations for week